Introducing my audience members, my dad, Joseph Mills, and my mom, Janice Mills. Today I'm going to talk about civil rights, then and now. Civil rights has come a long way since the 1950s and the 1960s, but we still need work on them, although they are not as controversial as they used to be. This is sourced from P. Levy's Civil Rights book. Our main priority today should be to become a stronger society and voice what is right. The most common civil rights struggle in American history was amongst African Americans. In fact, our goal should be to treat everyone the way we ourselves would want to be treated and only agree with equal civil rights. Race should not be a major issue. It's not about one's race on the matter. It should be about the character, personality, and the way the individual carries himself. This information is sourced from ezarticles.com by B. Brunner and E. Haney. The most common civil rights struggle in America was and still is endured amongst African Americans. Sourced from Black Lives Matter article from Wikipedia. So I'm going to start by telling you why civil rights are important, then give you a few major events that would have never happened if it wasn't for the civil rights movement. This was sourced from P. Levy's book, Civil Rights. Last, I'm going to sum it up with some ways we the people have changed and can continue to better our equal civil rights because all lives matter. Why are civil rights important? Well, civil rights ensure that every human being receives equal treatment. This is sourced from R. Venable, Wikipedia.com. Both civil rights and political rights are arranged as constitutional rights, which means civil rights refer to the first 10 amendments of the United States Bill of Rights. This was sourced from the Civil Rights Timeline by B. Brunner. A good example of Americans fighting for the ideals of justice and equality was the Civil Rights Movement. It is in fact one of the signifying events in American history, sourced from H. Abraham's World Book Encyclopedia. The issue is as long as race and poverty are barriers to accessing opportunities, the dream will not be achieved. Sourced from B. Brunner and E. Harvey's Civil Rights Timeline. Now, let's take a look at a few major events that paved the way. If it wasn't for our civil rights movement, some of these major events would have never happened, such as integration of schools, Black Americans being able to vote, access to all public restrooms, restaurants, and water fountains. This was sourced from R. Venable's Civil Rights book. The 1950s and the 1960s era forced Americans to accept that every person should have equal rights. This was sourced from J. Archer's They Had a Dream book. Rosa Parks, a NAACP member, refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama segregated bus, which led her to getting arrested and put in jail. Here's a picture of her on the Montgomery bus, and there's a picture of her getting arrested. Then the community launched a bus boycott, which lasted over a year. In result, the buses became desegregated on December 21st, 1956. This was sourced from the Civil Rights Timeline by B. Brunner. In 1960, 4 Black students began a sit-in at a segregated lunch counter. Although they were refused service, they were allowed to stay at the counter. This is sourced from the Civil Rights Timeline. These were the start of the change of equality. On April 16, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested and jailed during an anti-segregation protest in Birmingham, Alabama, where he wrote his seminal letter named A Letter from Birmingham Jail. This letter argued individuals have the moral duty to disobey unjust laws. This was sourced from J. Archer's They Had a Dream book. On August 28, 1963, Dr. King joined 200,000 people in the March to Washington, where he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. Here's a speech of Martin Luther King giving his famous I Have a Dream speech. That's also sourced from They Have a Dream book. On July 2nd, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, let's take a look at my final point of view, which is what we, the people of today's generation, can do to continue to improve equality of civil rights. Well, some of history's powerful activists, such as Reverend Al Sharpton and Reverend Jesse Jackson, and our very own President Barack Obama, are still fighting. Here's a picture. Reverend Al Sharpton and Reverend Jesse Jackson. Our main purpose should be to accept the different cultures in our society today as our equals. We all are equally Americans. The Obama-Biden plan is a good example of improvement. It was launched to continue to strengthen civil rights amongst all Americans, such as striving to improve our health care system. The Leave No Child Behind reform was developed, and many more to help minorities in our society. This was sourced from K. Wilmore, Civil Rights. How Far Have We Come article on scholastics.com. Obama has been a powerful advocate for our civil rights in America. Finally, the Black Lives Matter movement was created in 2013 due to police brutality in America. During this movement, protesters met with the President Obama to demand an end to racial profiling, police brutality, as well as mass incarceration. This was sourced from Jay Hunty's article on Black Lives Matter from Wikipedia.com. Here's a picture of Obama and Joe Biden. So in conclusion, I gave a few facts telling you why civil rights are important. Then I gave you a few major events that would have never happened if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, which paved the way for change. Lastly, but most definitely not least, I shared with you some ways Americans have and still is continuing to improve our civil rights in America. We the people can start by coming together and accepting all races and cultures as equals for a better society. Mahatma Gandhi said it so perfectly, and I quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world," meaning change starts within ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you so much for your time. Let's make a change. Were you very informed? Was that good information? You got to answer some questions. Daddy, were you informed?
Yes.
Mother?
Yes.